So much. Rabbi Dov Fischer of Young Israel of Orange County. We welcome you if you're here on YouTube. Please give us a like if it's something you like, and please subscribe to the channel. We begin with Muslims in Germany.
And we begin with a holiday horror overseas, a car plowing into crowds of people at a Christmas market in northeastern Germany, killing at least 2 people, injuring more than 60 others. Officials suspect it was a deliberate attack, and they are treating the incident as terrorism. A massive response from police, emergency workers, and ambulances. The car driving at a high rate of speed, mowing people down. In the chaotic aftermath, a handful of visitors and vendors stunned and shaken, and heavily armed officers on patrol. A fleet of ambulances arriving to tend to the injured, dozens carried off to hospitals. Local officials say a young child and adult were killed in the attack. Hours later, the Christmas market shut down, everyone gone. A lone police officer seen here surveying the scene. New images of the suspect now in custody, being led away by police. He's reportedly a 50-year-old doctor from Saudi Arabia who had lived in Germany for 18 years. But tonight,
they have had such a large immigration from Arab Muslims, and it's going.
Authorities say a motive is unknown.
And it's the old story of the Jews are the first ones to get it, but it never stops with the Jews. We are the canaries in the coal mine. Coal miners cannot tell exactly when they're losing oxygen and the gas buildup is about to explode the mine. So they put a canary in there. And if the gas starts permeating before humans pick it up, the canary picks it up and dies. And that's how they know to get out of the mine quickly. That's it with Jews. When it comes after Jews and the Jews get it, everyone else is going to be getting it next. Now it's going on all over Europe. Muslims, terror, it never stops with us.
Panel for us, thank you.
Well, President-elect Trump, he's repeated his warning to Hamas: return the hostages by Inauguration Day or pay a heavy price.
In a press conference yesterday, Trump also discussed the situation in Syria and the current state of the Middle East. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
During his press conference, President-elect Trump weighed in on the sudden takeover of Syria by rebel forces. He also suggested Turkish leader Recep Erdogan was deeply involved and sees Syria as part of his plan to reconstruct a Turkish empire.
Turkey's the one behind it. He's a very smart guy. They've wanted it for thousands of years, and he got it. And those people that went in are controlled by Turkey, and that's okay. It's another way to fight.
Trump's comments come as U.S. officials fear Turkish-backed forces are massing on the border of northeast Syria for an imminent invasion. The territory is controlled by Kurdish forces and an independent and democratic government that was an ally with the U.S. in the war against ISIS. In a letter to Trump, leaders warned of catastrophic consequences if they were invaded and asked Trump to press Erdogan to not send troops across the border.
As you know from the previous week, the Kurds are extremely pro-America. They're not too bad on Israel. They're definitely not devoted to destroying Israel. If they had their own place, they'd leave us alone. They're on the border, partly in Syria, partly in Turkey. Erdogan of Turkey is devoted to exterminating them, truly genocide. As far as the notion of what about a two-state solution and what about their right to self-determination, nobody cares at all. The new ones, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, are the ones newly taking over in Syria, and we continue.
Toughest issue since October 7th. Now that Hamas realizes Hezbollah and Iran are not coming to its rescue, the group may be ready to finally bargain with Israel. Israel's defense minister told the Knesset Monday that a deal is the nearest it's been since the last agreement. Concludes Hamas's reporting claims 45,000 dead, But the Henry Jackson Society's report disputes that number. It concludes Hamas's reporting has a number of distortions. Men listed as women to inflate female fatalities. Adults registered as children to inflate child fatalities, including 5,000 natural deaths, as well as people killed by Hamas in the death totals, including deaths before the war began, and no mention of combatant deaths, as many as 17,000. Military historian John Spencer said during its war with Hamas, Israel has done more to mitigate civilian deaths than any other military in history. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
You talked a lot with Senator Reid about Israel's responsibility to provide aid in Gaza. Why does Israel have a responsibility to provide aid to Gaza? Israel was the victim of an unprovoked, vicious attack on October 7th. Why should they provide aid to the aggressor nation? Or aggressor, Gaza's not a nation, to the aggressors on October 7th? We didn't provide aid to Germany and Japan during World War II.
What we did provide aid to and assistance.
This is the current outgoing Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin.
To many of the countries that we've operated in recently.
But not in World War II. If you had been in George Marshall's or Dwight Eisenhower's position in World War II, would you have wanted to provide aid to Germany?
Drone attacks, hijackings, and sinkings.
This is a very good piece I found to give you good background, who the heck these Houthis are, what the heck is going on out of Yemen, and what's just going on.
Houthi rebels have turned one of the world's most critical trade routes into a zone of terror. Thousands of miles away, distress calls from targeted vessels
were attacked by 2 missiles.
Are routed here to the UK Navy's 911 service for shipping, which has seen an 8-fold increase in incidents year on year, and where a team of civilians are at the centre of efforts to keep the world's cargo ships safe from attacks.
I think the only ones that have never spoken to us are the North Koreans.
The Royal Navy unit covers this zone, spanning parts of the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden and Arabian Sea, an area critical for the flow of trade between the East and West. In the past year, Houthi rebels have struck over 100 ships travelling through the narrow Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the gateway to around $1 trillion in goods annually.
The Houthis, which are a Yemen rebel group, has been basically attacking vessels. The Houthis started to retaliate over the war in Gaza in solidarity with the Palestinians.
We were now looking at a sudden overnight escalation from maybe 1 or 2 incidents in that area every 2 to 3 months to 8 incidents a day, multiple vessels involved, multiple nationalities, multiple threats.
While many ships are rerouting using the longer and more expensive route around the Cape of Good Hope, defending those that continue through the strait is a huge challenge.
The cost is enormous, and there has been no solution yet. For the US, it's more than $1 billion, just in the first few months in the cost of retaliating and stopping these attacks.
US warships are escorting vessels in a bid to protect the shipping lane as part of a wider containment strategy. This has also involved striking Houthi weapons launch points and storage facilities. But those stocks keep being replenished.
Every time the Houthis get hit, their launch points, arsenals get hit, they get more from Iran, typically, either missiles or drones.
These smuggling routes mean the Houthi strikes on vessels are continuing. In this video released by the Houthis, the So Union crude oil tanker is seen under attack. The UK MTO received a distress call from the master of the vessel or person in charge as the armed militants approached.
She'd been boarded by the bad guys and they set explosions off, and it literally, we were trying to glean the information. Was it true? Outside agencies said, have you had any reports? We try and get as much information from the master, because to a lot of masters we are the first point of contact. We are, some people think, an emergency service. We haven't got the assets, but we know the people with the assets.
The team worked very hard to manage that information, to triage it and assess it and then disseminate it in very quick time.
Locating vessels in distress is a key part of the team's work, but it can be complicated by the vessel's own attempts to stay safe. Automatic identification systems, or AIS, are radio signals that help ships avoid collisions. But to try and dodge attacks, they're often switched off while transiting in this dangerous waterway. That made attempts to locate the Rubimar, a cargo ship hit by the Houthis, even more difficult. The ship, carrying 22,000 metric tons of fertilizer, started to sink after the attack.
She was slowly taking on water. Her AIS was switched off. We were asking masters, as they were tracking through, if they could give us a position for her. After, I think, several weeks, she finally did vanish.
Despite efforts by the US and its allies to target Houthi infrastructure, the UK MTO has received and taken over 86% more calls year on year.
And you're happy for us to share this information with our coalition forces, sir, is that correct?
And has ramped up its exercises in order to remain alert.
They're Filipino.
And what flag is it?
It's Antigua and Barbuda.
So it's been pretty efficient from the Houthi side. They've suffered very little damage from US and UK and also Israeli strikes in terms of the deep impact. Their leadership is still alive. Their arsenal is being refurbished by Iran on a continuous, with continuous flows coming through for smuggling. So that combination means they're able to continuously attack shipping. There's also been supply of satellite coordinates that initially came from Russia.
This data allowed the Houthis to more accurately target vessels. The Russia-Houthi cooperation has also deepened ties between groups Washington sees as its adversaries. How long the Houthis will continue to bombard the waterway remains in question.
Their official assessment is to say that, until there is a ceasefire in Gaza, they won't stop. The Western intelligence sources I speak to don't believe that. They think that they're kind of on the high. They've never been as visible and as popular. They used to be a very small, faction. They want to keep the momentum going.
In addition to targets in the Red Sea, the Houthis have also launched ballistic missiles and drones at Israel. Tel Aviv has responded by targeting energy infrastructure inside Yemen. Some analysts believe ending the Houthi reign of terror will require more than just military action, including both economic and diplomatic solutions. Until that happens, UK MTO will remain on the forefront of the fight to save lives.
The people
לילה דרמטי בסענה בירת תימן של החות'ים. צבא ארצות הברית תקף את הבור של
The United States military overnight attacked the Houthis.
החות'ים. מתקן הפיקוד והבקרה המרכזי שלהם בסענה.
At the command center in Sa'ana, the main city in Yemen.
מתקן היווה מרכז לתיאום פעולות הטרור של החות'ים בים האדום. על פי הדיווחים בעקבות השיגורים שלא נפסקים מתימן, ישראל לא תסתפק רק בעבודה אמריקאית, ותתקוף שוב את החות'ים. והאמרות האלה מסוף חודש יולי בנמל חודיידה יחזרו שוב בקרוב.
The reporter says you may remember, to the Israeli viewer, you may remember these scenes from July when Israel bombed Yemen in the Houthi land.
החות'ים טוענים שהתקיפות על ישראל הן בעקבות מה שקורה בעזה.
The Houthis claim that this all is about the Israeli place in Gaza.
مستمرة في مواصلة تنفيذ عملياتها العسكرية وضرب كافة الأهداف التابعة للعدو الإسرائيلي في الأراضي المحتلة.
Saying that we will continue hitting Israeli targets until they get out of Gaza.
وإن هذه العمليات لن
Notice all the fruit salad he's got on his vest there. He's got, you'd think he was Eisenhower or Patton or someone like that. Unbelievable.
تتوقف إلا بوقف العدوان على غزة ورفع الحصار عنها.
מי שתומך ומשתמש בחות'ים הם האיראנים בהנהגת עלי חמינאי.
The ones really behind the Houthis are the Khamenei and the Iranians.
היום שוב נשא נאום לכבוד יום האישה באיראן, ובו
This is photographs from a speech he made on a day in Iran called the Day of the Woman. If you want to talk about tongue-in-cheek, the Day of the Woman.
שוב תקף את ישראל ואת ארצות הברית.
خیال کردن که قضیه مقاومت تمام شد. اینها سخت.
Israelis thought that this is all done. They have no idea. They're really wrong. There's a lot more coming at them.
האיראנים מאוד מוטרדים ממה שקורה להם לאחר שאיבדו את חמאס, את האחיזה.
In reality, the Iranians are going crazy over the damage and losses they've been sustaining between all their proxies from Hamas to Hezbollah being attacked as well as themselves.
בסוריה ובלבנון, ואת חוסר היכולת לתמוך בחיזבאללה, כפי שהיה בעבר.
Their losses in Syria and Lebanon, their inability to utilize Hezbollah as an important local proxy against Israel.
הציר השיעי התפרק, וכעת נותר למנהיגים בטהרן להפעיל את החות'ים ואת המיליציות שלהם בעיראק.
البته رژیم صهیونیستی به خیال خودش داره خودش رو از طریق سوریه آماده میکنه که نیروهای حزب الله رو به خیال خود محاصره کنه و ریشه‌کن.
He's saying that the Zionists believe that one by one they can attack and destroy all of these, he doesn't call them his satellites and proxies, he's saying all these different, in Syria, Lebanon, etc., but in the end, it is they, the Zionists, who will be eliminated.
اما اون کسی که ریشه‌کن خواهد شد اسرائیله.
بینتיים באיראן
Really just editorial comment from me. This is never going to stop until Israel bombs Iran seriously. I hope so much that the only reason they have not taken advantage of having wiped out all of Iran's air defenses and Syria's air defenses and having a straight, unobstructed line right now at Iran and the ability really to knock out everything. I'd like to think the only thing is that they're waiting another month for Trump, because if they don't really intend strategically to take advantage of the moment now, it's just, this is never going to come to an end.
מודאגים גם מההשלכות של המהפכה בסוריה, על מה שקורה אצלם בבית. האזרחים מוחים נגד המשטר.
Meanwhile, the reporter is telling the Israeli viewer that while Khamenei is talking a good talk about how he's going to make trouble for Israel, he's got increasing problems at home, civil unrest within Iran.
על אספקת חשמל וגז.
People aren't getting electricity, they're not getting gas.
מדליקים מדורות וחוסמים את הכבישים. מוחים שכל
So they're lighting torches in the streets and closing streets.
הכסף שלהם מתבזבז על קבוצות טרור.
Public is becoming increasingly angry. We've seen some of Netanyahu's addresses to the Iranian people the last few weeks, and people becoming increasingly upset that the country is so poor because they basically wasted billions upon billions purposelessly to these places like Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, and it's all been blown up now anyway.
טרור ועל פרויקט הגרעין.
ما این روش رو به
את איראן גרעינית.
This is beautiful downtown Yemen. This is news out of 2 days ago.
الذي حصل أمس من قصف للكهرباء وكذلك للموانئ وكذلك للنفط وكذلك أكثر من موقع فلا يخيفنا نهائيا. فقد تعودنا أكثر من 10 سنين ونحن نقاتل أذنابهم، فنحن نقاتل أذنابهم السعودية والإمارات، ما بالك من الآن عندما بنقاتل رأسا وجها لوجه كذا الكيان الصهيوني أو كذلك الأمريكيين، فنحن لا نخاف نهائيا. وبالنسبة لهذا الشيء الشيء المهم من هذا كله انه لماذا يستهدفوا المصالح العامة، مصالح المواطنين.
والله نظري الى الضربات التي تحدث في العاصمة صنعاء وفي جميع المحافظات ليست الا اشياء مما حدث من السابق. 10 سنين ونحن تحت القصف لم يضرنا اي اذى، وبالنسبة لقصفهم لم يهز فينا شعره ونبلغهم والله لنشوين جلودهم هؤلاء الطغاة، هؤلاء الذين يريدون أن يروعون المواطنين. أما بالنسبة للمجاهدين فهدفهم تحرير بيت المقدس.
This is why America, Dresden, just flattened Dresden, Tokyo, not Tokyo, why we nuked both Hiroshima, Nagasaki. These wars don't come to an end. Now you have the Geneva Conventions and all these rules of war, and these wars just don't come to an end. This is why America doesn't win wars anymore. For the last half century, America just doesn't win wars. And because you play by the rules that exist, and you have a determined population who don't even feel what's going on. They're just wreaking damage on people like the Israelis. Israel has made strikes like this one on oil tanks and stuff like that, but this is not going to come to an end until some people start flattening this place. And the amazing thing is, it's not only Israel, it's like the whole Western world now. They're trapped. You saw the video that they're stuck having to go around the Cape of Good Hope, and they're paying a fortune, both for the extra cost of shipping. We all, as consumers, are paying extra for all the products that are being shipped that way. Likewise, what's ending up happening is that you've got ships going under, and it increases everything from insurances. And in order to shoot down a $30 drone, you have to spend a $1 million missile. It's crazy. The only way it's going to stop is when at some point someone does something dramatic, the way Israel finally started doing in southern Lebanon, and the way that Israel started doing it. It's the only way to do it. By the way, notice this cute little kid here. When you talk about the innocent civilians and they're hurting the children, keep an eye on this kid. This is never going to end until they flatten it, till they really go and get serious the way that they did when America wanted to win. Maybe it'll be different under Trump. I don't know. I think Netanyahu also, from things that he's saying that we'll be seeing soon, I think Israel's going to be upping its game also there, now that they feel that they've been able to divert some of the focus from Hezbollah and Hamas. Again, this is all the past week.
Today, the IDF conducted precise strikes on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructures in Sana'a. which the Houthis have been using in ways that effectively contributed to their military actions.
Again, what they have to do is they've got to knock out I don't know whether they're going to be doing it, but they've got to knock out the electricity, the power, which is easy to do for them. Not for me from here, but for them, if they can already fly and take out the oil tanks, they can fly another, 5-10 miles, take out all the electricity of the country, take out all of its gas, take out so many of it, take out its supplies, and then you start getting people to realize that it's not like the scene you just saw where everybody's up there with knives and rifles saying, we'll kill them all.
Israel will not hesitate to act in order to defend itself and its citizens from the Houthis' attacks.
לפנות בוקר חיל האוויר תקף מטרות אסטרטגיות של החות'ים בנמל חודדה ובעומק תימן. אנחנו עשינו זאת בתגובה להתקפות החוזרות ונשנות של החות'ים על מטרות אזרחיות בישראל. הם תקפו אתמול בלילה בית ספר ברמת גן, והם לא תוקפים רק אותנו, הם תוקפים את העולם כולו, הם תוקפים את נתיבי השיט והסחר הבינלאומיים, כך שכשישראל פועלת נגד החות'ים, היא פועלת למען הקהילה הבינלאומית כולה. והאמריקנים מבינים זאת היטב וגם רבים האחרים. אחרי החמאס, חיזבאללה, משטר אסד בסוריה, החות'ים הם כמעט הזרוע האחרונה שנשאר לציר הרשע של איראן. הם לומדים והם ילמדו בדרך הקשה שמי שפוגע בישראל משלם על כך מחיר כבד מאוד.
What I wish I knew before this morning. The U.S. military has taken decisive action against ISIS. In a targeted airstrike, the U.S. eliminated senior ISIS leader Abu Yusuf in eastern Syria. This operation also took down another ISIS operative. General Michael Eric Kurilla of CENTCOM stated that ISIS remains a persistent threat, aiming to exploit Syria's instability. The strike in Deir ez-Zor highlights the U.S. commitment to preventing ISIS from regrouping. Stay tuned for more updates. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. This is News in a Minute.
לראשונה אחרי 50 שנה ו4 ימים לאחר נפילת משטר אסד, נכנסנו הבוקר לסוריה באזור מרחב החיץ עם ישראל בגבול רמת הגולן. אנחנו עוברים ליד מוצב האום וממשיכים בנסיעה.
This is from Channel 11, Israel's public TV station.
גדר הגבול, בעצם עכשיו אנחנו נכנסים לתוך סוריה.
2 דקות לאחר מכן, אנחנו בכפר הסורי קודנה.
הנה פה, איפה שפונים ימינה זה המכולת.
מי שנמצא מאחורי ההגה הוא אריה, תושב המושב קשת ברמת הגולן, וכעת לוחם במילואים בחפ"ק הסמח"ט.
אני רגיל לראות את השתל הזה מהצד השני, ווואלה, בימים האחרונים אני רואה אותו מפה, זה כיף חיים.
מוזר קצת, לא?
מוזר כיף.
אנחנו בסוריה, בתל קודנה, היה פה פעם מוצב של הצבא הסורי, אפשר לראות כאן את הדגל, וכרגע מי שנמצא פה זה הלוחמים שלנו, 101 צנחנים, נמצאים פה. נו, מה אומרים, איך בסוריה?
נוף מטורף.
כן, נוף באמת יפה, מזג אוויר טוב. עדיין נערכים פה עם ארוחת בוקר. מה מכינים?
נשב יפה מסביב למדורה.
טונה מאושרת מכינים פה, עושים מדורה קצת, מתחממים.
אם היה לנו מרשמלו.
וואלה, רק מרשמלו חסר לנו.
ההתרחשות המהירה שהייתה פה בסוף השבוע, שבעצם המשטר פה, השלטון פה ירד, ובעצם מה שעלה פה זה כרגע משהו לא ברור, ונוצר מצב שבצד השני אין באמת מול מי להתנהל. לכן החטיבה עם עוד כוחות יצאנו קדימה פרסנו כוחות, ובעצם אנחנו תופסים שטחי מפתח ששולטים במרחב החיץ.
הגעתם לפה, שומרים עלינו מסוריה.
וואלה, אין מה להגיד, היינו בבית, יום שישי, מקבלים הודעה, מחר בבוקר מתייצבים בבסיס. לא דמיינו, לרגע שכאילו נצא לכבוש משהו שפעם אחרונה היו פה לפני 50 שנה ביום כיפור. באמת, זכות גדולה לעשות את זה, לתרום, לשרת, אין מילים.
עד לפני שבוע היו במוצב הזה חיילים סורים. הבריחה החפוזה שלהם מכאן לאחר נפילת משטר אסד השאירה מאחור לא מעט ממצאים, מסמכים, ציוד לחימה וגם את המחברת הזאת שכתב חייל סורי שלמד בשעות הפנאי עברית. נראה שניסו ללמוד פה עברית. אנחנו רואים פה טקסט בערבית וטקסט בעברית. שורוק, דלת, בית, גבול, דמשק. חלק מהשיטה של החיילים הסורים היה לעבוד ולעבור בתוך תעלות לחימה. אפשר לראות את זה כאן, וכרגע חיילי צה"ל תופסים כאן עמדות. בעיקר מסתכלים לצד הסורי, לראות שלא מגיעים לכאן כל מיני גורמים ג'יהאדיסטים. יש פה גם אמל"ח סורי. זה ברוס תחמושת, ויש פה כל מיני מרומים. רואים פה תושבים בכלל באזורים האלה?
כן, כן, בטח, בטח. אבל אזרחים זה אזרחים, אנחנו לא נוגעים בהם.
When you hear that Haredi Jews do not fight, there is a legitimate issue going on, but notice this guy's payas, sideburns. There are a lot of Haredi Jews fighting.
רגע היסטורי. אני חושב שכולם התרגשו, אבל מבינים את המשמעות. אתה יודע, אתה רוצה להגן על תושבי מדינת ישראל, ליצור קו הגנה, מה שצריך.
מתחת לתל ממתינים בעמדות טנקי המרכבה סימן 4 של חטיבה 188, גם הם קפצו לכאן בתחילת השבוע כדי לעבות את הגבול בשטח סוריה. 188 חזרה לסוריה.
אנחנו מרגישים גם שליחות אישית בתקופה כזאת מיוחדת, להיות כאן כחטיבה 188 באדמת סוריה ולהמשיך את המורשת.
בחודשים האחרונים, עוד לפני קריסת המשטר בסוריה, החלה האוגדה 210 לבנות מכשול הנדסי בגבול רמת הגולן. מכשול שלא נועד לעצור חדירה של מחבלים, אבל בהכרח לעכב אותם.
זה יוצר זמן ומרחב לנו, ובטוח אנחנו נצוד אותם כאן במרחב הזה, ולא ייכנסו לתוך היישובים ולא יחצו גדר.
כמה זמן אתם עוד נשארים או מתכננים להישאר?
שאלה טובה. נראה לי שקודם כל זה ברור שזה ייקח לא מעט זמן. השהייה שלנו כאן, אנחנו ערוכים לזה. נראה, ברגע שיהיה מישהו בצד השני לדבר איתו, נראה לי שהתשובה הזאת תהיה יותר ברורה.
אנחנו אמנם יוצאים מסוריה, אבל הלוחמים שלנו נערכים להישאר מעבר לגבול עוד שבועות ארוכים, לפחות עד שהמשטר החדש בסוריה יתייצב, ונבין...
It is thoroughly possible that once the world, including Israel, begins to get a better sense of the new people and that the new people taking over for Assad are just as bad, that they're ISIS and they're Al-Qaeda. It's very possible that Israel may find she has to stay on both sides of the Hermoni and all of that for a good several years, just as she had to stay in Gaza.
לאן פניו מועדות?
אני פה בשיא החרמון עם שר הביטחון, הרמטכ"ל, אלוף פיקוד צפון, ראש השב"כ ומפקדים בכירים. אנחנו פה בחיתוך מצב כדי להחליט על היערכות ישראל במקום החשוב הזה עד שימצא סידור אחר שמבטיח את ביטחון ישראל. זה מעלה אצלי נוסטלגיה. הייתי פה לפני 53 שנים עם החיילים שלי בסיירת מטכ"ל. המקום לא השתנה, הוא אותו מקום. אבל החשיבות שלו לביטחון ישראל רק קיבלה משנה תוקף בשנים האחרונות ובמיוחד בשבועות האחרונים עם האירועים הדרמטיים שמתרחשים כאן מתחתנו בסוריה. אנחנו נקבע את הסידור הטוב ביותר שיבטיח את ביטחוננו.
The sound is off. No problem right now. And that's the Hermon Mountains. He's standing with Houthi Halevi, the current chief of staff of the Israeli military. And he's basically getting a sense of what's going on there.
I think Ireland should be helping Israel, should be.
Naftali Bennett was the previous prime minister of the short-lived government in between Likud moments of ruling the country. Bennett is, whatever one thinks about Bennett politically, Bennett is an outstanding spokesman for Israel, and because there's so few Israelis who speak American English, and if you're trying to persuade people to come across to your way of thinking, the heavy accent takes away a little bit from the focus. And when you have someone talking with a nice, clear American accent, particularly if he's bright, intelligent, articulate, he's just really good. They have very few people like that. And Israel has an unusual gift of being able to take the few people who are like that and assign them to other things where their skills are not used, and instead to get other people who have heavily accented English be their spokespeople. It's an insane thing, but it's because those positions are highly sought and they're political plums. And so it's like, I'm entitled, it's my turn to be, let's say, the consul general in New York. I put in my years, I paid my dues. So instead of having a guy who, let's say, speaks the King's English or the Queen's English or the English of Brooklyn and Queens, so, but Naftali Bennett is exceptionally strong in this.
Thanking us for fighting the war of the West and certainly not condemning or arresting our prime minister. Are they crazy?
I'm joined by former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Mr. Bennett, welcome.
Hi there.
So your prime minister has called for expanding settlements into the Israel-occupied Golan Heights. What's the impact of that, sir?
Well, those aren't settlements. It's towns and communities in the Golan Heights that have been ours since 1967. They are no more settlements than New Jersey and New Haven are settlements in the United States. It's part and parcel of Israel. President Trump has recognized the Golan Heights as part of Israel, and that's behind us.
What are your concerns about a power vacuum in Syria?
Well, obviously it's our nearby neighbor, so we very much care who's going to run the show there. And there's a bunch of groups. There's good groups, such as the Kurds and perhaps the Druze. And then you have Julani, who is an alumni of Al-Qaeda, and is now speaking very softly, but we do not trust him yet. That would take a long, long time. Only his actions would prove whether he's a moderate or he remains an Al-Qaeda terrorist.
You said that Israel is doing exactly what is necessary about Syria. Would you explain that?
Well, Israel has done two things. We've destroyed about 80% of Syria's air defenses, air force, navy, and chemical and strategic weapons. We did this throughout the past several days. This is almost unprecedented, a very impressive action. Why'd we do it? We did this because we don't know who's going to run the show. And if we have a ISIS-type regime running Syria, the one thing we want to be sure is they don't have the tools to cause a lot of harm around. The second thing we did is we entered Syria several kilometers inward and took defensive posts so we can ensure that there's a buffer between radical jihadi terror organizations and Israeli citizens living on the Golan Heights.
Israel is closing its embassy in Ireland, an interesting dust-up between Israel and Ireland over what Israel describes as Ireland's, quote, extreme anti-Israel policies. The Irish Prime Minister is...
The Irish have become the most anti-Semitic country in Western Europe. And I've had to take out, I'll try next class, I took out I had about 15 minutes of material on that subject, but as I said, I had to redact because there's just so much for today.
Apparently said that if Prime Minister Netanyahu were to set foot on Irish soil, that he would have him arrested. What do you make of that?
I think the Irish government is acting horribly, and indeed in the most vicious and mean way. What are we doing here in Israel? We're fighting defensive battles for the past year and a half. On 7 fronts, we were attacked. We didn't attack or preempt anywhere, neither in Lebanon nor in Gaza, nor with Yemen or Syria or Iraq or you name it. And we're defending not only ourselves, but we're defending the West because we are fighting the most crazy jihadi terror organizations on earth. We're the ones shooting them. We're the ones killing them. When we kill Al-Qaeda type terrorists, that's one more Al-Qaeda guy who won't reach the beaches and shores of the United States or Ireland for that matter. So I think Ireland should be helping Israel, should be thanking us for fighting the war of the West and certainly not condemning or arresting our prime minister. Are they crazy?
Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, thank you so much for your time and your analysis today, sir.
Thank you very much, Mike.
This past week, one of the Israeli national or league basketball teams was playing in France. There's something called the FIFA. It's a sort of international league. You know, in the United States, we have such a gigantic country with 50 states and everything that we have, let's say, an NBA or a WNBA, and same with baseball, football, etc. You can have a league just internally within the United States. Baseball, there may be 2 teams from Canada as well, also the NHL. But in Europe, each country may have their own leagues, but to have a really quality, top-notch, kind of top-of-the-line league, to have, let's say, in basketball, the FIFA, similarly in soccer. And so Israel flies overseas, the basketball team, to play league games against other teams in the league. And here Israel was in France this week playing basketball, and suddenly some anti-Semitic bastard runs onto the court. At least most of the crowd are booing, not too many cheering. Where is Daniel Penny when you really need him?
C'est la police! C'est la police! La police!
A George Mason University student is behind bars this morning after federal agents say he helped plan a mass casualty attack in New York City targeting Jewish communities. Randy Ayala is live outside of George Mason University, the campus out there in Fairfax, Virginia.
We began today with Muslims in Germany and Muslims in France, and they come in, these Arab Muslims, and all these very compassionate immigration policies, and you see what it's done to Europe, and God forbid if there's been a turnover in government, God God willing, just in time.
Yeah, with the latest information on the arrest, Randy, and also how school officials are responding to this big news.
Yeah, good morning to you, Annie. So we've learned that the student in custody here is an 18-year-old freshman who's been living in Falls Church, Virginia. It's unclear when exactly he was arrested, but federal agents allege that he was helping to plan out a mass attack on Jewish people at Israel's General Consulate in New York City. I want to go ahead and show you the mugshot. This is 18-year-old Abdullah Ezeldin Taha Mohammed Hassan. According to court documents, the FBI first began investigating him back in May after receiving an anonymous tip regarding his account on X being radical and showing terrorist-leaning behavior. And according to court documents, in September, a confidential FBI source reportedly began communicating with Hassan using the Telegram app. And this is where Hassan tried to help plan out this attack on the Consulate General of Israel. Now, GMU did release a letter that reads in part, quote, George Mason University continues to take enhanced precautions to maintain a safe and secure university community in light of this recent FBI arrest of one of its students. Although the student did not live on campus, he has been barred from entering university property. As criminal proceedings progress, the university will take appropriate action on student code of conduct violations. Now, Hassan is
Do you think that bombing the Israeli embassy or consulate in New York is a student code violation? Why was he still in that school posting? Forget about the FBI, forget about why did they still keep this kid, this Arab Muslim, in the school while he was publicly posting terror-related and aspirational things like that?
National of Egypt. Authorities say he is currently in removal proceedings with Customs and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now,
why wasn't he already expelled, deported from the United States? Forget about the university. Why wasn't the federal government, who are entrusted to check social media and try to prevent 9/11s from happening, why wasn't this guy already expelled?
Right now, it's unclear when he's due back in court. Also, the FBI has not released the charges that he's facing. So we will continue to follow this. A lot still to come out of this story, and we'll bring you the latest once we get some more information. But for now, that's the latest here in Fairfax. I'll send it back to you.
On that.
I'm a civilian, he says. I'm a civilian. He tells the fighter he's from the city of Homs and has been in the cell for 3 months. Okay, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. He clutches my arm tightly with both hands. Okay. Does anyone have any water? Water. My. Okay, it's water. It's water.
Compassion. That's the middle word. That's their nickname, right? The left, the woke, compassion. can't trust them, and you can't trust them. Now, I'm not going to play an hour and 59 minutes, and this we actually showed several weeks ago. So I'm just going to do this 2 minutes of it. It's right before the game. When earlier today, we saw that Israel's team went to France. That's where that jerk ran onto the basketball court with that flag and eventually got beaten up. Israel likewise went as part of the league to play Ireland. Ireland, the most anti-Semitic country in Western Europe, refused initially to play. And then they agreed to play like in a neutral country. They didn't want Israel and Ireland and the Israeli basketball team. And notably, the protocol in that league is that the two teams right before the game line up near center court. Each team lines up like in a straight line, a little bit on its side of center court, and then they approach each other and shake hands. Like, let's have a good game. And it was headlines that the Irish team announced, we're not going to stand in center court because we will not shake hands with the Israelis. So here the game is like just beginning, and they're announcing the players. Again, oops.
55 ציל וטור, 77 ג'נסיס, מאמן שרון גרופר, מאמן רועי לזר,
Again, this is center court. If you know basketball, you can see that the three-point semicircle, they're standing on like that three-point semicircle, I think. And they're just a little bit off of center court. And the Irish are supposed to be on the other side so that they can all shake hands.
And of course, please welcome.
The Irish are supposed to be here so that the two sides, you may even see like a little horizontal line there. It's not like a handshake line, but that's sort of where they line up. And then they're supposed to go and approach each other. So the Israelis are standing there, according to protocol, and they're ready in any moment to be shaking hands. And the other side's not coming.
The referees of this game, crew chief Oren Ekiboglu, and referees Eleni Margarita Tzadali.
And you watch the Israeli girls because they're kind of not sure what they're supposed to do. There's nothing in any handbook, but what happens if the other team doesn't come to shake your hand?
Elvis Peter Choders.
And there are these bastards from Ireland, and they're standing, and you even see like this one, you look at their faces, whether it's that they're embarrassed or maybe they hate Jews enough that they're not embarrassed, but they definitely feel it's an awkward moment. You could see in her eyes, she moves her eyes, looks down. This one also.
Now, please, National Anthem of Ireland.
And I came away from this with two thoughts. First of all, they are bastards, and they are the most anti-Semitic country in Western Europe. That's the team there. That's where they're standing. That's where the Israelis are standing to shake their hands, and that's where they're standing, manifestly to avoid it. One of the two things, and the other thing I came away with is maybe the problem between Israel and Ireland, maybe the reason they're so hateful towards Israel is because they're jealous of the national anthem, that Israel has such a better one. Israel ended up winning the game by more than 20 points. That's the finest thing, the best response, but doesn't always work that way. 30 points. Final score, 87-57. It does not want to get off the screen. Okay.
When you look at the photographs and the pictures and the videos that come from there, and you hear the screams of people screaming as the Israeli government burned men, women and children alive. They burned them alive. And the world stands by while 15,000 children are being slaughtered. 35,000 men and women and children. And it's unbelievable, the genocide that's happening. A child with no head, and the Israeli government say it's a mistake. I hope that Benjamin Netanyahu burns in hell the same way them children. And
he's speaking in Parliament. That's not a guy just speaking at home in the middle of a football game after 3 or 4 beers. That's a Parliament representative.
Some new developments right now out of the Middle East to tell you about this morning after Israel's foreign minister announced Sunday the closure of the country's embassy in Ireland over what he called, quote, extreme anti-Israel policies. This decision comes after Israel announced last week it would support South Africa's legal action against Israel in the International Court of Justice over its war with Hamas terrorists. Now, Israel blasted the move, and they're calling the effort here that they delegitimize and demonize the Jewish state. So those are some of the concerns right there, and also the surge of more combat and anti-Semitism within its own country. Meanwhile, back here in Washington, incoming president...
Seen throughout this year, since the war started, has been concerning deterioration of the relations, with the increase of anti-Israeli and anti-Semitism rhetorics and initiatives from the government, from the media, and just a general hostile atmosphere that is a concern for us and the Jewish and Israeli communities in Ireland.
So, with government figures brushing off claims of anti-Semitism and continuing their mission against Israel in the International Court of Justice, Irish-Israeli relations are seemingly hitting an all-time low.
For many, let's just get that a second.
Following a very public...
It's okay. For many of us, just to make clear, if you don't have that kind of sense of it, just let me get this thing off. Okay. There's something called Northern Ireland, and that is a separate entity. So just like there's Virginia, and separately there's West Virginia, there's Ireland, and separately there's Northern Ireland. Ireland, the one we were just focusing on, is primarily Catholic. Northern Ireland is predominantly Protestant. There are Catholics in the north, there are Protestants in the south, but those are the two different ones, and we may not all be really studied in all of the internal Irish things, but that's the stuff that many of us know of for decades of Irish Republican Army and Irish terrorists blowing up pubs in London. Most of that stems from what they call the Troubles in Northern Ireland. Because the Northern Ireland is primarily Protestant, it has a closer relationship with England, which is, of course, Anglican, which is like Episcopalian. And historically, there was tremendous hatred between the Irish, the Catholic Irish, and the British. And that's what led to all kinds of stuff in the 1800s. And in fact, for the centuries and centuries before that, between the British and the Irish. So if someone wanted to go on a vacation or a tour of Ireland, it would more probably want to go to Northern Ireland. Though if you want to see Dublin, so be it. And I've got about 15 minutes more that, God willing, in a future class will do. Now, with all the bad people out there, what we saw in France, we're seeing in Ireland, I wanted to emphasize as we wind down now, the good countries that we don't always hear about as much. I've already shared with you these last several weeks, Javier Milei, that great guy in Argentina who began his presidency by visiting the Ohel of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And secondly, we've also encountered Geert Wilders, the leader of the largest party in Amsterdam, just last week. He was at the Knesset. And I also introduced you to the Nigerian, she came from Nigeria, a black woman who is now the head of the Conservative Party in England. And they're coming very close to superseding Labour in the hopes of the next election. She's the most pro-Israel leader of a major British party ever. The Conservatives are better than Labour, but the Conservatives have some awful people like David Cameron, really awful people. But they've also always been better than Labour. Boris Johnson was better. Even this guy, Richie Sunak, was better. But she is amazing. And if she ever gets to be the head, and she's got a pretty decent chance. And I've introduced you to Pierre Poiviere in Canada. We're going to have a few minutes of him also. And you've heard him on our Sunday programs, how incredible he is, in contrast to Justin Trudeau, who's terrible. And I've shown you that Poiviere is 25 points ahead in the polls. And the elections in Canada are supposed to happen no later than October, but recent developments, the Canadian government may fall soon, and we may end up with Poiviere a lot sooner than we expected. And here's another guy, Peña out of Paraguay. This again is just December 11th, just the past week or so. So there's a lot of good people too. Peña just this past week visited Israel and announced that they're going to reopen their embassy in Jerusalem.
How are you? My wife.
He's being greeted by the Speaker of the Knesset.
Adam, it's a great honor.
That's like the equivalent of Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House in America.
To have you here.
I don't know whether some of you remember the song Machar, the Hebrew song Machar, which means tomorrow, and whose lyrics talk about that tomorrow. It's a very wistful song that was extraordinarily popular about 15 years ago. Maybe another class I'll play it for us, that tomorrow we'll have peace. If not tomorrow, certainly in 2 days. That's our hope.
יושב ראש הכנסת.
They're announcing that the Speaker of the Knesset is entering the room, along with his guest. And to our right, the Speaker's left is the President.
הכנסת עורכת הדין שגית אפיק, שגריר פרגוואי בישראל אלחנדרו רובין. Thank you for your true friendship. Welcome to Jerusalem and welcome to the Knesset. May God bless Israel and God bless Paraguay. בבקשה, אדוני ראש הממשלה.
Again, this is pretty much the past week. What was it, December 11th?
הביקור הזה ראוי להערכה מיוחדת.
This visit is worthy of special appreciation.
במהלך המלחמה התרגשנו מעומק ליבנו כששמענו אותך אומר, תמיד נעמוד לצד ישראל.
During the course of this war, it really hit our hearts when you publicly announced that you will always stand with Israel.
לא משנה המחיר, כי זהו הצד הנכון של ההיסטוריה. ולידידות
You are on the right side of history.
האמיצה הזו שורשים בני עשור. ההבטחה האמיצה שלך, ידידי הנשיא, להעביר את שגרירות פרגוואי לירושלים.
Your promise, my dear friend, President Peña, to bring your embassy to move it to Jerusalem.
קורמת אור וגידים, ואתה ראוי לכל ברכה. ישראל תמשיך לרסק את שלוחות הטרור של ציר הרשע בהובלת איראן.
Israel will continue to destroy and crush the axis of terror emerging from Iran.
נגן על קיומנו, נבטיח את עתידנו, ונחתור לכונן יחסי שלום עם כל מי שרוצה לחיות איתנו בשלום.
We will have peace with anyone who wants to be with us in peace.
ויבה פרגוואי, ויבה ישראל,
Viva Paraguay.
ברוכים כולכם בארצנו. תודה רבה.
נשיא הרפובליקה של פרגוואי, מר סנטיאגו פניה פלסיוז, לשאת דברים. בבקשה, אדוני הנשיא.
Invites the President of Paraguay to speak.
This is no ordinary occasion to me. Quite the contrary. This is a day that is filled with profound political, emotional, and spiritual meaning. As I stand before you as the first Paraguayan president to address this great assembly, I'm deeply honored and humbled by this most unique privilege that you have so generously bestowed upon me. Paraguay is also firmly against the absurd intention to equate the responsibility of the leaders of the terrorist group Hamas with that of the democratically elected government of the State of Israel, and also condemn any action that seeks to deny the legitimate right of Israel to defend itself and repel its aggressors. The whole world knows today, loud and clear, that Paraguay is moving its embassy to Jerusalem. This is, for us, the true value of solidarity, to be with your brothers in the most difficult times. Thank you very so much. Shalom, Israel.
So that feels good not to be alone. You have problems with this country, that country, but you've got that guy in Argentina, God willing, Canada, guy in Amsterdam, Paraguay, God willing, the one in the United Kingdom, and God willing, a change in government in the United States. Things going in a good direction.
Yesterday you said that you endorse Israel proactively defending itself by hitting Iran's nuclear sites, which is something that President Joe Biden does not endorse. Do you not feel like this could lead to a likelihood of an all-out conventional war between Iran and Israel? And do you not agree with Joe Biden and his assessment?
I think the idea of allowing a genocidal, theocratic, unstable dictatorship that is desperate to avoid being overthrown by its own people to develop nuclear weapons is about the most dangerous and irresponsible thing that the world could ever allow. And if Israel were to stop that genocidal, theocratic, unstable government from acquiring nuclear weapons, it would be a gift by the Jewish state to humanity.
Israel must be able to prevent Iran from using nuclear weapons. If necessary, that means proactively striking Iranian nuclear sites and oil installations to defund the terrorist regime.
I think the idea of allowing a genocide that the world could ever allow, and if Israel were to stop from acquiring nuclear weapons, it would be a gift by the Jewish state to humanity.
Just excited to be here today.
A sizable cabinet shuffle that aimed to strengthen and stabilize Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet, instead today overshadowed by an NDP letter that puts the Prime Minister's political future in jeopardy. In a letter to Canadians, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says, no matter who is leading the Liberal Party, this government's time is up. We will put forward a clear motion of non-confidence in the next sitting of the House of Commons. With that letter, Trudeau has lost all support in the House. Conservative leader Pierre Poiviere has been repeatedly pushing for an early election and took it one step further today.
I will be writing the Governor General, asking her to urgently reconvene Parliament and require a non-confidence vote so the Prime Minister can judge whether he stays in power.
This all coming as the Prime Minister made significant changes to his inner circle.
Why do you still have confidence in the Prime Minister?
The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister.
Who today face repeated questions about their leader's future.
This is a time for unity. This is a time for us to stand together.
The Prime Minister has been very focused on work.
These are people that are in his party. Some of what happened is that the way it works in parliamentary politics, as many of us know, just for the record, in the United States, we're basically a two-party system. Yeah, there's sometimes like a Green Party and a Liberal Party tries to get in there, and a third party, and it's a two-party system. In most parts of most democracies in the world are parliamentary, where you have a lot of parties, and they all run. 5 parties, or in Israel, 600 parties, and they all run. And then at the end of the elections, they look at what percent of the vote did each of the parties get. And based on the percent of votes they got, that's the percent of seats in the parliament they get. So let's say Israel has 120 seats, and let's say a party gets 25% of the vote, 1/4. So they get 1/4 of the seats, 30 seats. Another party, let's say, normally isn't so easy with the math, but let's say another party gets 10% of the vote. Of the 120, they get 12 seats. Then when the dust settles and we see how many seats each party gets, no party normally has the majority. In Israel, that would be 61. So the heads of the different parties have to start negotiating with each other. Can we work together? Obviously, if we were so much the same, we wouldn't have run two separate parties. So we do have differences, but would we rather that the other guys run the country? Because if you'll work with me and I'll make a concession to you, and just a really quick example, imagine if America, instead of, let's say, Trump against Kamala, let's say they ran a MAGA Republican Party and a never Trump Republican Party and a centrist party and a liberal Democrat Party and a woke Democrat Party. So let's say you had 5 parties and no one party gets a majority. You could see that maybe the MAGA Republicans would swallow hard and go to the never Trumpers and say, we don't want the left running the country. Will you join us so together our seats will make a majority? And what are we going to have to do for you to make you happy? And we're not going to be able to build a wall. Well, we can't go no tariffs. all right, we won't have tariffs. And then on the other side, the never-Trumpers, they're going to have to swallow it hard. It means taking Trump, but it's sort of like they're feeling we don't want the left, and as long as we can get, well, he won't do tariffs, and he won't do this, and he won't do that, and they work out a deal. Now you have the government functioning, and after about a year or two of the deal, the sides that made the deal begin to regret that they ever got it, like a bad marriage. They start regretting we ever made this deal. It didn't work out the way we hoped. And so one of the parties, like that NDP, basically says we're sick of it, we're done, we're out. And when they announced that we're out, suddenly the government doesn't have a majority of the seats. And so what happens is someone brings a vote in Parliament, a vote of no confidence, or in Canada they call it a vote of non-confidence. And if the government cannot get the majority of the Parliament to knock that resolution down, then the government's out. And there's new elections in like a month or two. So right now it appears that within a month, Trudeau's government will fall, and then they'll have that election, and God willing, Poiviere will have a chance to. Okay, that's the last part of today. Our program basically is over. Last week, I introduced you to one of the most popular songs that's hit Israel in the last year or two. And I'm concluding with two final versions of it today. The first, if you recall last week, this is the guy who wrote it. He's not the one who made it viral. Another guy did a cover of it, and that became viral. 20 million hits on YouTube. But this guy wrote it, and here he sings it in the presence of the rabbi, his rabbi, whose words inspired it, not just philosophically inspired it, but he took his rabbi's words and he put it to music. So he's singing his song that has become so viral, and he's singing it in the presence of his rabbi. And then I'm going to show you, last of all, something that I thought was like, it blew me away. It's so extraordinary, I had to show it to you. Imagine in the United States, if all the American news anchors and leading news reporters would be gathered together for a project. We're going to take a patriotic song or a feel-good song like America the Beautiful or You Raise Me Up, or just some very positive song. And let's say, could we get into one song singing? Could we get participation from Nora O'Donnell of CBS, Lester Holt of NBC, George Stephanopoulos of ABC, Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer at CNN, Dana Bash and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and what's her name, Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid. Could you imagine them all agreeing to be in a song? And only in Israel, I think. That's the last two things for today. First, a little bit of this guy singing a song for the rabbi, and then the last piece.
שכבוד הרב, אנחנו עכשיו עובדים עליו, וזה נקרא יש אמונה, אין נחמה, וזה יש אמונה. וזה השיר שהשם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב, אז בזאת שם. השם הוא אבא טוב והוא תמיד מתפאר בי, רואה בי רק את הנקודות הטובות. רואה שאני רוצה להיות טוב, רק לא יוצא לי, וחסרות לי כולה כמה תפילות. והשם הוא גם ראה את הרצון שהיה לי, שניסיתי לא אמרתי נואש. רואה בביזיון שלי, במר שהרגשתי, איך התחלתי כל פעם שוב מחדש. והשם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי, ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב. השם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי, ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב. ויהיה לי עוד יותר טוב, ועוד 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 יותר טוב, ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב. וגם אם זה קשה לי וזה שוב לא יוצא לי, אני רוצה לחיות שהכל זה טוב. מלא אותי בזה שאתה תמיד אוהב, תיתן לי כל יום מחדש מתנות. ותנהיג אותי ברחמים כאלו כמו שבעולם הזה נקרא רחמים. שיראו כולם שכן אתה שומע תפילות ונחייך נהיה בריאים ונשיר. שהשם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב. השם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב. ויהיה לי עוד יותר טוב ועוד 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 יותר טוב ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
ערב טוב, אנחנו במהדורת חדשות מיוחדת. לצידי פרשננו עמית סגל. נתחיל איתך.
השם הוא אבא טוב והוא תמיד מתפאר בי, רואה בי רק את הנקודות הטובות.
רואה שאני רוצה להיות...
Notice on the upper right the channels, you know, they have 11, 12, 13, and 14.
טוב רק לא יוצא לי, חסרות לי כל עד כמה תפילות.
והשם הוא גם ראה את הרצון שהיה לי. כשניסיתי לא אמרתי נואש.
רואה בביזיון שלי, במר שהרגשתי,
איך התחלתי שוב כל יום מחדש.
והשם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
השם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
ויהיה לי עוד יותר טוב ועוד 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 יותר טוב
ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
שומע מרחם עליי ותמיד עונה לי,
ואם עדיין לא ממשיך לחכות,
מלא אותי בזה שאתה תמיד אוהב אותי, תיתן לי כל יום מחדש מתנות,
ותנהיג אותי ברחמים כאלו כמו שבעולם הזה נקרא רחמים.
שיראו כולם שכן אתה שומע תפילות ונחייך נהיה בריאים ונשיר.
שהשם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
השם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי
ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
ויהיה לי עוד יותר טוב ועוד 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 יותר טוב
ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
ותהיה לי פרנסה, תהיה לי עשירות,
ורווקים ורווקות תהיה להם זיווג. תהיה גם רפואה שלמה ובריאות איתנה, חיים יפים מאושרים שנה אחרי שנה.
השם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי
ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
השם יתברך תמיד אוהב אותי ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
ויהיה לי עוד יותר טוב ועוד 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 יותר טוב ותמיד יהיה לי רק טוב.
I thought that was very sweet. And it's like, only in Israel can you see a thing like that. Thanks so much for being here. Have a wonderful week.